In this video, we are going to take a look at finding and factoring out the greatest common factor. If you don't remember how to find the greatest common factor, it takes us back to something that we probably did in elementary school and then forgot about, and that is creating a factor tree. So we're going to take our coefficients, our 12 and our 20, and we're going to break them down into the smallest possible multiples. So the prime numbers. Remember, a prime number is something that can't be divided by anything other than 1 in itself. So we'll start with our 12. 12 is a product of 3 times 4. And then 4 is not a prime number. We can break it down further. So 4 is a product of 2 times 2. And then we have all prime numbers at the bottom. So we have 3, 2, and 2. And then we'll do the same thing for our 20. 20 is a product of 4 times 5, or you could have done 2 times 10. It doesn't really matter, as long as that when you get to the bottom, you have all prime numbers. So 4 is a product of 2 times 2. So we have all of the prime numbers at the bottom, 2, 2, and 5. Once we do this, we're going to write out our two terms. So we have 12x cubed y squared, and we have 20xy to the 5th. So we're going to write out what we multiply to get to that. So for 12, x cubed y squared, we already have the beginning. It's 2 times 2 times 3, and we just got that from over here. And then we want to break down our x cubed y squared. Remember, x cubed just means x times itself 3 times, and y squared means y times itself twice. And we're going to do the same thing for a 20x times y to the 5th. So our 20 is 2 times 2 times 5 times x, and then y to the 5th is y 5 times. And then what we want to do is circle anything that shows up in both the top and the bottom. So we have 2, 2, and then they both have 1x and 2 y's. So our greatest common factor would be 2 times 2 times x times y times y. So that would be our greatest common factor, and we're going to multiply that back out. So 2 times 2 is 4, then x, and then those show y squared, and that would be our greatest common factor. So the hardest part is just writing that expanded form of everything, getting everything to prime numbers. But other than that, it should be hopefully not too hard. So let's take a look at this next one. We're going to follow the exact same steps. So we take our constants and we break them down. 27 is a product of 9 times 3, and 9 is a product of 3 times 3. We do the same thing for our 9. That's not a prime number. It's a product of 3 times 3. So we're going to take those prime numbers, and we're going to use those when we write our expanded form. So 27, let's not write that with the highlighter. 27 x squared y cubed is 3 times 3 times 3 times x times x times y times y times y. And then 9x to the 5th power, y to the 6th power, is 3 times 3 times 5 x's times 6 y's. And as you get more comfortable with this, you won't have to write out that whole expanded form. But while you're practicing, before you get a hang of it, it's always a good practice to do. So 3 turns up in both of them 2 times. They both have at least 2 x's and at least 3 y's. So our greatest common factor is 3 times 3 times x times y times y times y. And then when we multiply that out, 3 times 3 is 9, x times x is x squared, and y times y is x cubed. And that would be our greatest common factor. Once you get used to it, you'll be able to look at the 27 and the 9 and be like, oh, the biggest factor of those is 9. And then notice the smaller variable is always what we end up with at the end. So we have y cubed and y to the 6th. Cubed is smaller to the 6th, and that's what we end up with at the end. Once we are comfortable finding our greatest common factor, we can work on factoring it out and writing it as a new factored form of the exact same thing, so just simplifying it. So if we take a look at the next problem, we now have 3 numbers that we have to find the greatest common factor of. So we have 15, 25, and 30. So for 15, that is a product of 3 times 5. So 15a squared b cubed is going to be equal to 3 times 5 times a times b times b times b. And we'll do the same thing for 25. The factors of 25 are 5 times 5. So 25a cubed times b is going to be 5 times 5 times 3a's times b. And then 30 is a product of 5 times 6, and 6 is a product of 2 times 3. So we have all of our prime numbers, and 30ab to the 4th is going to be 2 times 3 times 5 times a times 4 b's. And then we need to look at what they have in common. So all of those have a 5 in them. They all have at least one a and at least one b. So our greatest common factor is going to be 5 times a times b. And I'll put that in red. 5 times a times b. So that's the only thing that can be taken out of all 3 of those terms. Now, when we're factoring out the greatest common factor, we want to put that greatest common factor on the outside. And then on the inside of a set of parentheses, we're going to put all of the numbers that are left. So in 15a squared b cubed, we're left with the 3ab times b. So that's going to be 3a, b times b is b squared. And then we're going to put a plus sign because that's what was already there. And the second one, we're left with 5 times a, which is 5a squared. And then we're going to put a minus sign because we didn't factor that out. That's still left over. And then we have 2 times 3 times b times b times b. Now 2 times 3 is 6. And then b times b times b is b cubed. And that is how we factor out the greatest common factor. So we still need to find the greatest common factor like we did before, but now we also have to write what's left over. And we'll do that one more time just so that you have it down solidly. So in this one, we're factoring 3x cubed y to the 4th. 3 is already a prime number, so we don't really need a factor tree. It's just 3x cubed y to the 4th can be rewritten as 3 times x times x times x times y times y times y times y. And then 9 is a product of 3 times 3. So 9x to the 6y squared is going to be 3 times 3 times 6 x's, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 y's. And then we just need to find our greatest common factor. So we have a 3 in both of them. We have 1, 2, 3 x's in both, and 1, 2 y's. So our greatest common factor is going to be 3. There's 1, 2, 3 x's, so x cubed, and there's 2 y's, so y squared. So that is what's going to go on the outside of our parentheses. And on the inside is what's left. So in the first one, all we have left is these 2 y's, so it's y squared. And on the second one, we have 3 times x times x times x. So that's going to be 3x cubed. And that is how we factor out our greatest common factor. Notice that where it was a minus sign up above, I still have a minus sign in my answer. Hopefully you found this helpful. Go forth and prosper.